Welcome to the Pimp Your Brilliance podcast with Monique Malcolm, a show about creative people leveraging their brilliance to create their own opportunities. I aim to show you what's really possible when you shut down the chorus of fear and lean into your genius zone. You can learn more about this show and subscribe for updates by visiting keepchasingthestars.com/podcast. Hey, Brilliant Squad. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Pimp Your Brilliance. If you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Monique Malcolm, and the Pimp Your Brilliance podcast is a show for creative people who want to create their own opportunities and make money by leveraging their ideas, their talents, and their skills. Basically what I call pimping your brilliance. And it goes down here every single week with inspiring interviews from amazing entrepreneurs. And then I jump on the mic and do my own solo shows, sharing strategies and things that are happening in my own business. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by the Brilliance Lounge. The Brilliance Lounge is a learning community for creatives who want to stop dreaming about generating revenue and start monetizing their brilliant ideas. I'm bringing my in-the-trenches expertise, which is 10 plus years of online experience selling digital and physical products, plus everything I've learned working with my coaching clients together into the Brilliance Lounge. It's the step-by-step guide that you've been looking for, plus the community of support you need to get to the finish line. Inside of the Brilliance Lounge, you'll have access to my signature product creation system, Pimp Your Idea, which will help you plan, create, and sell your first digital product, a private community to share, collaborate, ask questions, and seek feedback, live office hours every single month, virtual events to help you stay accountable, implement your ideas, and connect with other members in the community, plus a few other awesome perks. It's time to stop second-guessing yourself. It's time to stop procrastinating. It's time to stop making excuses. So if you're ready to stand in your expertise, shine online, and leverage your brilliant brain to grow your creative business, I'm ready to show you how. So let's make that happen inside of the Brilliance Lounge. If you want more information or to become a member, go to pimpyourbrilliance.com/lounge. All right, so let's talk about today's episode because I have another amazing guest on tap for you guys today. Her name is Jennifer Vassel, and she is the author and founder of I Am Unique, a children's book series and self-love brand aimed to inspire girls and women to rise above their insecurities and share their own unique gifts with the world. So doesn't she already sound like a woman after my own heart? She's inspiring women and young girls, and I just love that. Her interest in entrepreneurship peaked when she heard a life-changing sermon on New Year's Eve, 2012. And in 2014, she published her debut book entitled My Channeled Energy, a collection of poems and short stories written over a span of 20 years. And that book went on to be an Amazon #1 bestseller in 2 different categories. I really feel like this episode is a great reminder about the importance of sharing your own story and turning pains into teaching lessons and uplifting other people. And you'll hear in Jennifer's story how she even came up with the idea for the I Am Unique book, which I think is an inspiring story in itself. But I'm always encouraging people to share their story and self-publish. It's really not as hard as you guys think it is, I promise. And Jennifer really breaks down the process in this episode. So if you have a story inside you, if there's a book inside you that is dying to come out, this is definitely the episode for you. So grab your pen and a notebook and let's jump in. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Monique. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you, and I'm glad that you reached out because I know a lot of people are interested in publishing, and specifically self-publishing, so I feel like you'll have a lot of great insight to offer, and I really like the idea behind your brand, so I'm excited to share it. To get started, let's start at the top. Give me a bit of your backstory. Tell us who you are and, the whole, what are you doing and the whole idea behind your brand, I'm Unique.
Yes, so the brand I'm Unique stemmed from my childhood insecurity of having a birthmark. I was really insecure about it growing up. I wouldn't wear certain tops or dresses that exposed it. I remember for my high school prom, I had the makeup artist cover up my birthmark with foundation. It's a part of my shoulder and back, like it's about a quarter of my back, and I had the makeup artist cover it up with foundation, and all I could remember thinking was, I want to look absolutely beautiful tonight. But fast forward to today, I realized that no one should feel so insecure that they cover up a piece of who they are. And so I wanted to create something that would inspire kids to overcome their own insecurities and share their unique gifts with the world. And so that was the inspiration for starting I Am Unique, which started out as a children's book series, but now we are growing and building other components of the brand, including educators component, where we have a teacher's guide to help teach the idea of self-love and perseverance in school curriculum, a parent guide, coloring book, and not lastly, but the other things that we're working on is an animated series. And we just want to position our character, whose name is Erin, as the face of self-love. And just to give a little bit of background of the story, Erin is the main character. She has a birthmark on her face, a passion for acting, and she wants to try out for the leading role in her school's play. But her friend tries to discourage her, so she has to figure out if she's going to let a perceived flaw get in the way of her dream.
So I'm curious to know, why did you, I know that you said that you were inspired by your childhood, but why did you decide on children specifically versus like adults and self-love that needs to happen during adulthood?
I believe that every adult has a little girl or a boy inside of them who never fully addressed the insecurities or the limiting beliefs that they faced. And in speaking to even adults about the brand, I always hear, oh, I have something that I was insecure about, or I was insecure about my hair growing up, or I was teased for this, and blah, blah, blah. It usually stems from a young age. And so with the children's book, I'm encouraging conversations right when the insecurity starts. And oftentimes it starts when we're little. I remember when my birthmark insecurity happened, I was looking around and I didn't see anyone who looked like me with the birthmark, and people started asking about it, implying that it was a bruise or I got burned or something. And so I was around 7 or 8. And so I want to have these conversations right when it starts, and it usually stems from a childhood trauma or experience. And if it's not addressed, we tend to grow up and still harbor those same things that kept us back when we were younger. So with this brand, I'm talking to children and also adults, but in a children's medium. Okay.
I was just curious. I recently did an episode, like maybe 2 episodes back, and I was talking about mindset and mindset changes. And one of the things I shared was this whole idea of thinking about where some of these mindset beliefs or limiting beliefs we have began. And one of the things I shared was, growing up, I was always really insecure about my height because I'm very tall as a woman. I'm 6 feet. And in my family, being tall is not weird, or it's not a thing. We don't really, it's not even something we focus on because everyone is tall. So for us, this is our norm. But then when you go out into the world, there are people like, oh my gosh, you are so tall. That's usually the first thing people say when they meet me in person from online. They're just like, oh, I didn't expect you to be so tall. And I'm just like, well, I mean, you're looking at me through the lens of a camera, so of course you wouldn't. But it's just one of those things that people don't even realize the impact of stuff that they're doing that affects people over into adulthood. So I love that you took that experience and created a whole brand and a way to help both adults and children. Because I think parents having those conversations with their kids allows them to probably look into themselves and think about where some of their insecurities stem from as children.
I do see I'm Unique as being a healing mechanism for adults, and then also a conversation starter for little kids who might be possessing those same, insecurities, or the questions that they might be getting, certain questions that make them feel uncomfortable. But it's like to have these open and honest conversations, and for kids to realize what their gifts are from an early stage, so that they're not growing up to be adults feeling like they don't have a purpose, or they don't know their purpose, or they're in jobs that they absolutely hate, but they never took the time to really hone in on their gifts and talents and overcome whatever insecurities that they may face when they were younger.
Exactly. I love that. So let's talk about your process for writing the I Am Unique book. Is this the first book that you wrote?
No, my first book was a poetry book called My Channeled Energy. I published it in 2014, and it became an Amazon #1 bestseller in 2 categories. This is my first children's book. I Am Unique is my first children's book. And the writing process, I would say it just, well, first of all, let me back up a little bit, like the why behind how I even started writing. I wrote my first poem at the age of 6, my first short story at 8, and was published by 9. But I didn't know that writing could be a viable career. I just didn't see anyone around who looked like me who was actually doing it. So I was really inspired by Bishop Dale Bronner. His New Year's Eve sermon on December 31st, 2012 was all about, his message was about, don't die with your gift still on the inside of you. Impart to others what was entrusted to you. And that really was my aha moment that changed the trajectory of my life and career. At the top of 2013, I just started compiling poems and short stories that I had written from age 6 to 26. And then in 2014, I published what is now My Channeled Energy. As far as writing I Am Unique, that process was, I think, it just flowed out of me. I don't have a tactic or a strategy of how to write per se. It just came, and I knew that it came, and I was writing a story that was so personal to me because it was inspired by my personal experience.
Okay. So so I know you said you don't have like a specific process, but did it like take a specific amount of time, or did it just flow when you were like, okay, over a matter of days, you just kind of had the book, or did you have to come back to it a couple of times?
So I sat down in 2015 and started typing out the ideas and the characters that I wanted to use. That, and then also fleshing out the story. That took about 2 weeks, or that was the easiest part, to actually get the words out on the paper. But the part that took the longest, it was about maybe 6 months, was engaging in Illustrator and working with the graphic designer for the image. So I think my feedback for aspiring writers is to get everything down on paper first. And then I also have a free self-publishing guide that I can send the link to you, but it details all the steps that I took to write, publish, promote both books that I've published. And I always tell people the easiest part is writing. It's the work, especially if you're an independent creative. The work comes with building an audience, with getting your message out there, with engaging other key players if you don't have the skills to do design or other aspects of the book publishing process on your own.
Oh, I would love to know about your experience working with the Illustrator. How did you find someone? Like, did you have a style in mind ahead of time, or did you know someone? What was that
So
like?
so I had a very clear vision of what I wanted the character to look like. I Googled pretty much, I just said representative artists, that the type of artwork that I wanted the characters to be depicted like real life people. I didn't want cartoons. I didn't want, short limbs or anything like that. I wanted it to be real life imagery. So I Googled representative children's artists or representative children's illustrators. I found a list. I randomly just started doing some research on the styles. A lot of people have their portfolios up, so I looked at the styles. I came across one woman named Penny Weber who had the exact look that I had imagined. I reached out to her agents, and it pretty much flowed from there. The experience with her was like a match made in heaven, because I knew being a creative is sometimes it's hard to get your work to translate. And working with another creative, you have to respect their area of expertise too. So we just worked very well. And I think what helped too, and she made a comment about it, is that she appreciates my organization, she appreciated the way that I organized my thoughts. So if you're engaging people, you have to make sure that everything that is playing out in your mind is written out or dictated out in a way that will translate to that person who is doing the work. So the thing that I did was a table. So on the left side, I had a description. The left column was a description of, or like the sentence from the book. And then on the right side, that column was the illustration that I wanted depicted. And so I gave her an example of, here's this scene. I would like Aaron to be doing this with the teacher, or this is how I imagine the teacher to look. I pulled up an image and I showed her, like, this is how I would want, I showed her visuals. And then Aaron's friend Madison, I was like, I would like Madison to look like this. I grabbed a photo from Google. So it's really painting that picture and making sure that it translates well, and then having that conversation when it doesn't translate. I just really, we had maybe one revision. I needed one revision on a couple of looks, but everything just flowed. It just, we were definitely, I feel like we were divinely paired. And I've never met this woman. I found her online. She's based in New York. I'm in California. The plan is to continue working with her for the other books in the series.
Oh, okay. I do a lot of graphic design work myself. I'm self-taught, but I think it's so interesting when I listen to people who are creating things and they're talking about like bringing on other people and how they work with other people. That's one of my quiet like fears, is working with someone. I have an idea for a book that I want to write later on this year, but I don't want to have to format it. And I'm just like, okay, so now I have to figure out like, how am I going to explain to somebody what I want? Because for me, when I create things, I already know what this book looks like. Like I already have a very, very specific cover for this book in mind. And I'm like, okay, so now I have to find someone who has a similar style, and then I have to try to explain to them what this looks like from my brain onto like the finished product. So that's always like the thing that I worry about, which is a lot of times why I just design things myself. But I just want to be the person who writes the book this time and just says, okay, here you go. And like fix this file and let's move on.
I'm definitely self-taught on a lot of things, like putting together. I worked with a graphic designer to help put the cover together, but the interior I used InDesign to do all of that. But the next go around, as we grow as a business, I won't necessarily have to do all those things. But what has helped with me in articulating my vision to people is creating mock-ups, whether it's in PowerPoint or pulling references online or references from like Googling different things and saying, I'm going for this style, this kind of imagery. And then that kind of gives the other creative or the other person who's doing the work an idea of where you're going. But if there's something, at least something tangible that they can see, I think that helps for a better collaboration, because they actually can, because we can't see what's in each other's minds, right? So if we can get it on paper, and it could just be a rough draft, but at least it could start the roadmap.
Okay, that's helpful. I'm going to keep that in mind for when I get ready to do this next book. Okay, so I want to know about the self-publishing process, because I know that this is something that you self-publish. Like, what was that like? What do you feel like going forward you'll continue to self-publish your books? Or do you want to do like traditional publishing? Like, tell us about that.
Okay, so the reason I did self-publishing was because I wanted to have creative control over my work. The first story, or the first book that I wrote, My Channeled Energy, was extremely personal, and it was poems and short stories from my life. So I knew exactly how I wanted it to look. I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I didn't want a middleman telling me, no, take this out, no, add this. So I was thinking about that. And then I was also thinking about creating something that I could pass down to family. I want to build wealth and build a legacy. And creating my own publishing company helps me house every creative work that I do here on out. Now, the process of self-publishing was, as mentioned before, the easiest part is writing the work. I think it's the steps that you need to do afterward to make sure you're protecting yourself and that, you're promoting yourself. So, I'll definitely share the self-publishing guide that I have. But one of the things that's very important is copywriting your work, making sure that your work is protected. The other thing that I would mention too is, as far as design, I know you mentioned that you are a graphic designer. There are some people who might not have that gift or the gift to design or that time to design. So one of the things that I mentioned in that self-publishing guide is finding resources that are budget friendly. Like you can go on Fiverr or Upwork and hire somebody to do the design for you. Marketing is another important thing that I do, and I think that that has been very instrumental. The most common question that I get outside of what was the inspiration for your book is, how did you get yourself out there? And that's one of the things that I'm working on teaching more. I had a speaking engagement in March about how to pretty much be your own book publicist, and finding where your audience is. That's an important part. We think the book is we spent all the work, all the time putting the book together, but then we launch it to crickets because we didn't take the time to find our network, find our audience, and build a community around it. And then I could go on and on, but like the self-publishing piece, the writing part, what exactly would you like to know about self-publishing? So I won't go like on a tangent.
I guess, okay, so I know how self-publishing works 'cause I publish a few things myself, but I don't know if my community does. So if you could do like a quick overview of how do you even get a book file to an actual book?
So I use Kindle publishing for the self-publishing platform. So CreateSpace is a publishing platform, Amazon's publishing platform, and they've recently done some rebranding, and I believe Kindle Direct Publishing is where you go now to upload your work. So what I did for both my books, well, for the first book, the poetry book, I typed up a Word document, and then I worked with someone on Fiverr to make sure configured for Kindle. The paperback, I didn't have any issues with getting it formatted from Word. Now for the picture book, I used Adobe to do the layout because now I was including illustrations. That you have to make sure, if you're doing the work yourself, I would recommend making sure that the dimensions are in line with the size of the book that you want. When you go to Amazon, you can choose the size of the book. It could be like an 8 by 10. There are other self-publishing platforms out there like Lulu, I believe Book Baby, but CreateSpace has been, and the CreateSpace is now Kindle Direct Publishing, but I think that has been really instrumental in helping to get your book out there. And then it's print on demand, so you don't have to be responsible for fulfillment.
Yes, and that's my favorite part. So those of you who are interested in self-publishing a book, definitely look into Amazon's platform or really any of the print-on-demand platforms, because in a way, it's not even in a way, it is passive income. I mean, besides the fact that you have to promote and market, you don't have to store inventory, you don't have to worry about shipping and handling and all of that jazz. And because it goes through Amazon, they handle the customer service too. So just a little pro tip for those of you who've never published anything. So you mentioned a little bit back about, the easiest part is writing the work, but you have to be your own publicist and really market your book. So for your audience, I know that since you're a children's book, you are writing this book for kids, but how have you been able to find an audience? Like, what are you doing? Because obviously kids are not making purchasing decisions. So how are you getting in front of the people who are making those decisions?
Yes. So my first step, and oftentimes I see authors out there making overlooking this step, is to find who you're serving, who is that audience. While I'm in children's media, I know that mothers are the ones who are buying things for their households. And so I'm particular about who I am marketing to. I know that I am looking for moms of color, moms in general that are in a certain age bracket, millennials, and then also Gen X, and then sometimes the grandparents, depending on where I go. But I know that I'm also targeting people who believe in the power of self-love, or the common interest is about youth empowerment, women empowerment. So when I'm looking, or when I'm asked to go certain places, I first check and see who's going to be there. Who does the brand really align with? Like, does it make sense for me to go? Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people casting a wide net and just going anywhere because they see a large amount of people there. But I mean, those a large amount of people might not be your right audience. They might not be buying whatever it is you're selling. So you have to do the first step to find out who are you really serving. And once I know that, some of the top things that I do, the 4 things that have helped with marketing the book, and these tips are things that you can do even if you have a small audience or limited marketing budget, or if you don't have the budget to pay someone 4 figures to be your publicist. But the one thing is to leverage a lot of time, and I share the story, I share the why behind the brand, and I share images of me going to events and images of people with our character, with the book. And as a result of that, our character has been in places that we haven't even set foot in. I've seen pictures in the Philippines. Aaron is there in Kenya, Uganda, like places that we've never been, and even people asking for the book to be translated in French and Spanish. So social media has helped. Another thing that I do is go to in-person events. That's the best thing that you can do, is to start building your community locally. And we go to events that have to do with moms empowerment, youth empowerment. So for example, this coming weekend, I'm going to an event called Moms in Color. There's going to be hundreds of women there talking about the experience of motherhood, and a lot of these mothers are businesswomen as well. So talking about that experience, and we'll be vendors there. So that's very important to vend at events that make sense. And we go to events that have to do with, as mentioned, empowerment, have to do with youth development, things of that nature. And the other thing that we do is pitch to media outlets and pitch to places where we know our audience likes to go. That's another thing. Like once you're key with your audience and once you've been able to hone in on who your audience is, you'll know who to pitch, because you'll know what they watch, what they like, what their interests are, where they hang out. And as a us pitching journalists our story and sharing how my birthmark insecurity inspired a self-love brand for kids, we've been featured in national online publications such as Forbes, Black Enterprise, Exo Nicole. And by building that visibility, that helps with brand recognition and brand awareness. So that really does help with people finding out who you are and what you do and how you serve. And then the last thing I would say that's really important is partnering with brands and online social media. So for example, I reached out to, I don't know if you're familiar with the McClure twins.
Mm-hmm.
So I just reached out to mom, Ami, and just sent an email and shared what we're doing. We have this great book, and it's about identifying your unique gifts, and it's about overcoming your insecurities, and we would love if you'd share on your social media platforms. And she ended up doing that, and she shared it on Facebook and YouTube. It got over 150,000 views within the span of 2 weeks. So if you have a smaller audience, you can work with and collaborate with people who might have larger audience, but don't go at it just for personal gain. You have to come at it with a sense of value and knowing what value you bring to the table.
I love the McClure twins. They're so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit and kind of talk about some of the challenges and like what you feel like have been to your keys to success. But before we do that, what would you say, or what advice would you give to the person who has a story to share, but they're afraid to put themselves out there?
The advice I would give is to it's definitely hard to put yourself out there, and there is definitely a level of vulnerability that is required in order to release yourself and your work out into the world. I love this quote by Anais Nin, who was an essayist. She said, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And that to me was just it always rings in my mind because there will come a time when you're tired of being in the same position, tired of being stuck, tired of feeling unseen, or even back to Bishop Dale Bronner when he said, "Don't die with your gift still on the inside of you. Impart to others what was entrusted to you." My advice to people who feel that fear, there will come a time when you're just tired of it and you just have to jump. There is no other way than to just jump, and it's the most relieving feeling in the world when you bet on yourself and when you're courageous enough to just try.
Okay, I like that. All right, so talk to me about some of your challenges, because you are clearly making a lot of great decisions, but what are some things that you feel you could have done better or that you just personally find challenging running your own business?
I think some of the challenges are, I would say, and I'm always working on this, is my faith muscle. I do see things moving, but it's always my struggle personally where I'm seeing it moving, but it's not moving fast enough. Or I feel like I could be further, and I have to always stop myself and think, no, I am where I need to be. Everything is aligning in my favor. I just have to believe. And so the hardest part for me is just continuing that faith, building that faith muscle. And then on a more another thing is making sure that we have enough financial stability coming in. So one of the things, or finances coming in. So one of the things that we're working on is building multiple streams of income. So we're not solely relying on one thing to help sustain us. And I'm working on building my career as a professional speaker. We're working on creating other streams within the I'm Unique brand. One of the things with that is having the funding to do all those things. Like we need to have it costs money to create these products and to build the brand. And so finding resources, finding people who believe in us. We've gone to a number of pitch competitions and people don't see how it can work, or they don't see how it could be financially viable. So oftentimes we're using our own savings, but that, you could burn out. You get burnt out just constantly having to find creative ways to make a living. So it's the challenge is always finding financial resources, finding people who will support the brand and help it grow.
Okay. And then turning that question around, what do you feel like have been your keys to success?
I think the keys to success have definitely been doing things yourself. I could easily sit around and say, how am I going to get myself out there? What do I need to do? I don't have the money to hire a publicist or what. And no, you can do these things yourself. And that's one of the things that I'm passionate about. You can create your own destiny and your own path. If people don't believe, or if people are overlooking you, they'll catch up. And if they don't catch up, hey, is whatever. I think the success is doing things on your own and making it come to life. Putting yourself out there, a lot of time, not waiting for opportunities to come to you, going after it and doing it yourself. I think that has definitely been, and taking initiative. A lot of things don't happen by you just sitting there twiddling your thumbs and hoping and wishing people will see you. No, you'll demand your presence. I mean, you'll demand what you want. You'll demand the space that you take up. It's all about just owning your power and putting yourself out there. I think that has been the biggest key for me.
Yes, I'm over here like silently screaming yes to all of that, because that's like that is like the epitome of what I think Pimp Your Brilliance is. It's taking what you know and like going for it. And like you said, not sitting and waiting for people to hand you things, like just saying, I'm going to create an opportunity for myself and then creating it, because people, you know, there's always going to be someone who can't see the vision. But I always tell people the vision on the ground floor is not for other people. It's for you. Like that vision is to get you to move into your next position. But on the ground floor, nobody cares except for you. And I think that's kind of hard for people to reconcile, because they feel like they need that validation. But I'm like, the validation was in the vision. Now you got to put in the work so that people can see the vision. So that's my little 2 cents.
I tweeted about that either yesterday or 2 days ago, where I was saying, you know, not the vision, not everyone is going to get your vision, and that's fine, because it wasn't given to them, it was given to you. A lot of times we get down, myself included, where I'm sharing with friends or family members about the work that we're doing and showing the potential, and they actually see me doing the thing, but then question it a week later, like, oh, are you still doing such and such? It's like, how can I be showing you this thing, but you still, there is a sense of doubt in your voice. So I just had to realize that there is no reason God wouldn't give me the things that are playing out in my mind for me to just sit on it. And people are not going to understand it. They're not going to get it, even if it's slapping them in the face. But that's what you'll have to deal with. Or you don't even have to deal with. You just keep pressing forward, pressing on.
Yes, to all of that. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, and I always like to end my show the same way. And that is with some actionable tips. So I call this the Pimp Your Brilliance Action Challenge. And for you, I would love if you would share, like, what are the first 3 things that someone needs to do if they want to self-publish a book beyond writing it?
Beyond writing. First 3 things: identify your audience, build your community, and create a budget, a marketing budget.
Oh, I should have asked you about that, but that's a really good tip. A budget. So here's something that I did, and I'm going off on a tangent, so I got to wrap this up. But when a lot of people ask me how I created my planner, one of the most important things was putting together a spreadsheet with a budget that calculated all of the stuff that you needed. For me, since I have to send a physical product to people, things like packing tape and boxes and labels and all of these things. Figure out what your budget is and put it in a spreadsheet, and then start tallying your expenses and seeing how it all fleshes out. It will save you so much heartache in the end.
It definitely will. And then you see what you're overspending on or underspending, or seeing where you can pull resources from is definitely helpful.
Exactly. Yes. So thank you for sharing that, because I would never even thought about that. And then finally, what have you read recently that blew your mind that we need to know about? And it doesn't have to be specifically a business book.
Okay, well, this one that I'm reading is a business book, but it's definitely a must read. It's called Contagious. What is his name? Jonah Berger. And he's a professor who wrote, he did a whole bunch of research, and he found out the 6 attributes that make for contagious content. So if you're an entrepreneur out there it's great for marketing. And so if you're an entrepreneur out there looking to figure out how you can get yourself out there, what you need to do to be more visible, he breaks down some of the things that you can apply to your own business and to your own products or services to see like what makes something contagious, what makes something viral. So yeah, that's what I'm almost done with it, but I'm recommending it to everybody, every entrepreneur that I know.
All right, so I will add that into the show notes. And then finally, how can listeners get in touch with you?
So you can follow me on social everywhere, Jennifer D. Vassel. That's my personal brand page. And I Am Unique. If you're interested in learning more about the brand that we're building, you can go to I Am Unique Book everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The website is iamuniquebrand.com. And yeah, I'm very active on Instagram, so feel free to reach out and follow our journey.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for being on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and all of these wonderful insights about writing a book and self-publishing.
Thank you so much for having me, Monique.
You're welcome. All right, guys. So that's wrapping it up. If you like this episode, please share it. Also, you can tag myself and you can tag Jennifer on Instagram. Let us know your favorite takeaways, your favorite parts of the episode. And until next time, go out there and pimp your brilliance.